This episode is not sponsored, but we encourage you to help support the small businesses, charities, and organisations that we mention.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Our Circle. I'm Rhiannon.
And I'm Jess.
And today I'm very excited because we are joined by two hosts of a podcast I absolutely love called Strange Origins. Please welcome Jack and Rod.
Yay! Welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us. I've wanted to honestly have you guys on as soon as I heard you. At the beginning of the year, I was doing 10,000 steps a day for this charity thing, and I was so fucking bored. And I was like, I've got to walk and keep walking. I was getting so angry. And then James, our previous co-host star, happens to be Jack's brother, and he told me that Jack has a podcast. I was like, sick, give it to me. And I listened to you guys throughout all of my walks. I loved it. And then you had, we're going to get into everything, but I love this podcast, so please go and check them out. But could you please tell our listeners about your podcast? What is it about?
Yeah, so honestly, it's just us two having a chat and trying to like have a friendly environment. We literally just talk about anything and everything, whatever's on our mind at the time or anything like that. But we've always tried to keep it like a quite casual conversation. So it's kind of like you're eavesdropping on a friendly conversation rather than like,
I definitely get that feeling. When I was listening to an episode yesterday, I felt like we were literally just sat in a room with you and you guys were talking, we were just like listening in. It was very like natural and just flowed, and super easy to listen to. I loved it. Honestly,
like the way it kind of like happened like that, we're making us talk about stuff like that. It's when we used to talk in a friendly atmosphere when we're playing games and stuff, or if we're in a pub with friends, everyone would always be like, what are you not talking about? Like, it's like, can I listen to that? So that's pretty much like why we try to keep it like a casual atmosphere. But
very friendly.
So how do you two know each other? Like, how did you two come together to do this?
It's well, actually we didn't like know each other from school or anything like that, but I've got a friend who was my original co-host.
Right.
He went to uni, and he had a girlfriend at the time, and she had a friend, and that's Rod. So it was like a very complicated way.
Okay.
And then we started playing games together, but we would never play without, you know, when you have the connector, you would never play without that person. And then eventually me and Rod were like,
we don't need you.
Exactly.
And pretty much going on strong since then. And we talk pretty much every day now. So.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
it's like a weird friendship thing.
It's great. I love it. I love that we get to be a part of it by listening to it.
Yeah.
And the name Strange Origins, where's that stem from?
So again, originally with my co-host Mark, me and him were like, we're kind of bored, kind of similar. Like we just like need to do something because it was lockdown. No one was doing anything. So we just thought, we've always been told that it would be quite good for us to do like a podcast or us talking and people could listen in. And it came from such a weird origin, strange origins, and that's basically how I worded it. Mark actually never liked the name. He thought it was a horrible.
Oh, rude.
And he was like, yeah, it's a temporary name. Every episode he was like, it's a temporary name, I'm gonna change it. I was like, thanks, man. But, it kind of stuck from there, honestly.
I like it.
And he didn't.
Yeah, exactly. No. Would that be a warning to you, Rod?
I like the name, all right?
I love the name.
You can stay.
I love the name. I think it's original. I think it's your own thing. I think it's cool.
Yeah, it kind of just spurred from nothing, but I liked it.
So like loads of the episodes that you do when they're not specialized on Marvel, which we will definitely be getting into, they're discussing current affairs, and obviously there's always so many things going on in the world. How do you choose which thing you're going to talk about?
Well, literally, it's just because we're having a conversation about anything.
Yeah.
It's however we feel about like whatever is happening at the time. We don't actually come with a list of things. Like we don't. Every time we click record, we have like an hour-long discussion that we should have recorded beforehand, and that's just us talking.
Practice run.
Yeah. And it's just us talking about how I feel about the day or how I felt at the time. But like, I think for example, like our last episode, we spoke about like the game industry. And we actually wanted to talk about loads of other things, but it spurred onto a conversation that lasted about 40 minutes.
And so we record.
Exactly. That's pretty much how it happens. I
mean, like when I first joined, I was so nervous to the point where like I was like looking up which topic to talk about. And like I think when I first did the first episode of the podcast I'm featured in, it's like, but this that. So it almost felt like a news type podcast.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And it felt very unnatural to me. Like even I told Jack, like, is that okay? It's like nah.
Yeah, not really.
Because it's like it's supposed to be just like two guys just having conversations, right? Just like how day to day, or like So I think of the first 2 or 3 episodes, I was like really nervous, shaking, sweating, and like just constantly like looking up like things to talk about just to be like, for me, entertaining.
Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
So, but then we kind of just diverged from that, just like just two guys talking.
I think like originally that's what I wanted. It's just because me and him talk when we play games all the time, and the conversations I think are quite funny, and we've been told by other people are quite funny. But when we record, as soon as I hit that record button, Rod would go full robotic.
Right.
And I was like,
you know what though? I think that's quite normal, especially if it's like your first sort of time doing things like that. I think you can't help but feel watched or something, until you get past it, and then you're like, we're just talking.
I mean, if you go back to like the first episode on the channel, like it was terrible. So it's like kind of like that.
I don't think that you guys give that off at all, at all. I think it's so natural, and one of my favorite things that you guys do, and part of me was like, oh, that'd be so cool to do as well, but I thought, no, that's their thing, I'm not copying that. And you guys ask each other like, how was your 7? I was like, and I love that that's like your thing. So I don't know, I think there's so many things to enjoy about your podcast. I really do.
Thank you.
We need to congratulate you. You've been doing it for a year now. How have you actually found the whole process? I mean, you said that you were kind of nervous at first, but how have you found like the recording, the sort of production side of it, I guess, the pre-production, if any, post? Like, has it been a learning curve at all, or did you have experience beforehand?
No, it's absolutely a learning curve. Like it was so hard at the beginning. Like just because we obviously use like OBS and stuff like that to record our capture, our display monitors and stuff like that, but so many teething problems. Again, with my original host, like he would record originally on his phone. So he'd be talking on his phone via Discord, which is the app we use, and it would just cut out. Like his internet would cut out. I'd have to edit. I actually had to edit and splice that stuff together a lot of the times. And then with Rod, like we tried to up the production a bit because I know he knew a little bit how to do game side. He knew how to record some stuff, and it kind of like stemmed from there. Definitely learning curve and trial and error. Pretty much. Yeah, it's just like I don't know. Like there was a lot of teething problems that we ran into.
I mean, there was like an issue with like a few weeks ago when there was like a Windows update.
Oh yeah.
And we were like recording a podcast, and then for some reason the Windows update changed the mic settings.
Oh no.
For Jack. So we were like recording, talking, and then like he was like, Rod. Mine was not picking up, but yours. Looks like you just having like a one-way conversation.
It was like 45 minutes of just lost footage.
Yeah.
Because you can't salvage it. So but it's fine. We thought that conversation was rubbish anyway. So we moved on.
So would you say that you've got like a genre at all, or is it literally just, I mean, I don't know what our genre is, like you said, like talking about anything and everything.
Yeah,
do you feel like you have one, or?
Well, that was the hardest thing. I spent like an hour trying to pick a genre on Spotify.
Yeah,
so I was like, I don't know. Yeah, like I don't know what to pick. So in the end, I went for like, I think it was like current affairs or like entertainment comedy, and I was like, I guess.
It's like very loose, like umbrella. Do you feel like you found a community since starting the podcast? Is there like a podcast community that you feel part of, or?
Not so much at the beginning or even the middle, like definitely more now when we're doing more like collaborative stuff and talking to more people. But at the beginning, it was basically like a lot of our friends who was like, I didn't know you did this. I didn't know you think like that. Like that sort of stuff.
Okay.
And they're just picking up a lot of like stuff that we did there. But it is good to have like those occasional people that you see only sometimes to say, oh, I'm looking forward to your next episode and stuff like that.
It's such a nice feeling that.
It is. And the fact that anyone like holds any value to what we say is kind of like interesting for me.
It's slightly weird to me.
It's
like how do you find us entertaining, or just two friends just talking about anything?
That is, I think, do you know what, especially like you said, this was during lockdown that you started this. People aren't getting to socialize, and so it was really cool getting to just sort of, to me it was like meeting new people, but I just didn't get to be part of it. I'm like responding in my head like, I agree.
That's like the hardest thing that we had to like try and put down is that no one can actually kind of interact with you.
Yeah.
Like if you were streaming or something like that, people can actually interact with you in live real time.
Yeah.
But when you're recording, I mean, the best they can do is a comment, I guess. But
yeah, but
most people are reluctant to comment.
Yeah, they'll just either like dislike or like.
Or they're like me and put in all caps.
Before I knew who that was, I was like, wow, who is this person?
Got a big fan.
I just wanted to touch, because you guys have mentioned it already about your gaming side of things. That must have a community in itself. Is that something that you promote your, I mean, I know of gaming. I know a lot of stuff to do with it, but I'm not in it. So do you get to promote while you're gaming about your podcast at all? Like, how does it work?
Yeah.
So when me and Rod stream on Twitch, we have like, basically you could type in ! And then a word. Yeah. And the bot on the chat will put up a link of what you want, whatever you want, basically. Yeah. And we've got one for podcasts. So they just type it in and our podcast link comes up and they can just go and watch it there.
And to gaming, Jess.
And the community itself is actually cool because we've met. There was a guy from America we've met. Yeah, we're playing games with now on stream, like together. Like you do meet like more people and a lot more people around the world, I guess.
Yeah, but it's a bit more like intimidating because it's like you always have to be performing in a way and constantly be like looking at chat and also interacting while also trying to play the game at the same time and like be entertained.
You do also have to always be on, which is quite draining.
This is what you guys were mentioning in your last episode. We are fans. You guys were saying how full on it is, and I completely understand how that can be, because as in I understood what you were saying, because it sounds so intense, even though some people might be like, it's a game. Like, it's like, well, no, it's one thing to play a game. It's one other thing to interact with people while you're doing it, to record yourself and then give commentary. I just think it's a lot.
It is like, I think I did speak about it on the podcast, but it's like coming home from like a job, like 9 to 5, and then from 10 till 1 o'clock in the morning or something, we're streaming. So it's just like it's draining, and then I get up at 7 o'clock in the morning next day, and it's just like, oh my god, I'm dying. Help.
Speaking about your last episode and gaming, I wanted to ask you, like, how would you classify a gamer? Because you were saying that everyone plays mobile games, and just a little fun fact about me, I play Pokemon Go.
Okay, yeah.
And that's pretty much the extent of my gaming. But do I count as a gamer in your eyes or not?
Yeah. Like, I think you do. Okay. There'll be some gatekeepers out there who'll be like, no, you're not a gamer, girl. Like, go away.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're still playing the game.
Exactly. You're still interacting with that sort of thing. You understand like the mechanics of the game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which carry over to a lot more games than you think.
Yeah. Add that to your bio, Jess.
But then Candy Crush, if you play Candy Crush, that's not a gamer?
No, it's still a gamer.
It's still a gamer. Okay.
We're not like one of those like white knights on there. Like, just saying, you can't be this, you can't be that. Like,
you have to prove yourself.
The extent is when I tell my mum, like, she does a crossword, I'm like, you're not playing games, shut up.
That's a crossword puzzle.
Okay. But I would say it's the same sort of thing. You'd still see your brain lighting up the same way if it was in an MRI and stuff like that. But where you're playing a game, you're interacting with it, you're coming with that sort of different part of intelligence that you need to use for that sort of game, and it lights up your serotonin and dopamine. So do you know what I mean? It does the sort of same thing like that.
Yeah, bring it back to the podcast. I feel like you guys are very open, like you're very honest and open with your experiences, your thoughts on things. Had that always been like a conscious decision to be that way on your podcast, or did it just sort of happen naturally?
It literally, that's just how we talk all the time with each other. Since school, we've tried to like kind of keep open, honest atmosphere because nobody spoke about it. Yeah, like we spoke about this before, like beforehand. Like, it's just mental health and male mental health in particular. Like, no one talks about it. They're starting to do it more nowadays, which is great. But again, even towards our age or even younger, like when I was in school, when I was like teenager and stuff, you would never go in one day and go, "Oh, I'm sad today." Yeah, like it's always a line of like, "I'm tired." Like, it's what you would say,
right?
Especially the group of friends you're with.
Hanging around
like,
with,
I had like a friends of like who were basically like roadmans. So like I couldn't go up to them, like, you know, I feel a bit sad or depressed today, because they'll just immediately just like gun down on me and like, oh, you know this, you know that, like, man up.
Yeah.
And I'm like this is how I feel on the inside, man. Like, I don't know how I should man up when like I'm like fully depressed.
Yeah,
right.
it manifests itself in certain ways. Like, I mean, like 5-6 years later, I have like a breakdown because I can't handle like the people are like, you're not open, you're not honest, you're not telling me how you feel. Well, yeah, because that's what I've been told to say all the time. So that's the reason. Yeah, that's the reason why we do it. Like, I think if it sounds cliche, but if one person does listen to it and hears what we're saying and can relate to it, because I know, again, my nephew listens to my podcast. He's like 14, nice. And it's like if he's going through that sort of thing, and he can listen to it and just sort of relate, and it will help, and I will feel great.
I think so. I think it's brilliant that you do that. I also think because you guys have different backgrounds as well, in the sense of you've both been in the UK, but I know that you both, like Jack, you come from a mixed background of from Iran, and Rod from Philippines, isn't it? Yeah. So those are two other cultures as well that can come into the discussion as well, and I feel like you have both mentioned those cultures at times as well in podcasts, and I think that's important for your listeners to hear. Because
I think even at the beginning, like Rod had this sort of like crisis of like, why would anyone want to listen to what I'm saying? And I said to him, like, you don't understand how unique you are. Because where you come from is completely different upbringing to where we are now. And your life and your interesting takes are what people strive to listen to, because you'll grow as a better person.
I think sometimes as well, I'm not trying to be like just sell the hell out of this, but I'm like, I find those episodes tend to do best, like from our experience anyway. Like, we interview a lot of people, of all different walks of life, and I feel like the feedback I get anyway, I'm sure Jess probably feels the same, is that people are really interested in stuff that isn't necessarily what they know of. They're interested in hearing about other stuff. They're interested in hearing about other cultures, stories, experiences, and whatever. So I don't know. I enjoy that part of it.
I think like when there's a vocal minority who like, I don't care about that stuff, like man up on that stuff. They're the loudest, but the most common person is somebody who wants to listen to other people's opinions.
Agreed.
And they want to like grow as a person. Like, I was fascinated to hear like some of the stuff that Rod was talking about. Like, and because to me that's unusual, I guess. It's not the normality.
Right.
And Rod, again, vice versa. Like, when he's listening to my stuff, I assume anyway.
I fully
Speaking of like other opinions and stuff, you both mention your partners quite a lot in your episodes, and I really enjoy when you tell us or the listeners what they've said, like contributing towards your episodes. What do they think of the podcast for a start, but also is there any chance that we might get to meet them on the episode?
Well, we spoke about this because I originally very supportive. Like, originally huge loved it. They listened to every single episode. They were like, when's the next one coming out? But again, that was just they're supporting us in that endeavor. But now it's just, I guess, because we live in the same house, it's like, I've heard it, I don't want to listen to it anymore. Like, please just stop talking about it. But I'm always like, can you give me the view?
Just, you don't even have to watch it, just leave it in the background.
Leave it in the background. My girlfriend's actually been on it before.
I've missed that episode.
But that was before she was my girlfriend. That's why. She was on the Mauritian oil spill one when we were talking about that. And it was fun, like, doing that sort of thing, but it wasn't on as my girlfriend, so like it would be interesting to sort of do it from there, because I know I would love to have like Rod's girlfriend on the podcast. So
it's gonna be hard.
It's gonna be hard, yeah.
It's gonna be hard.
Bring
I'll try and convince her. Yeah.
I think it'd be great.
I think it stems from the same thing, because my girlfriend said the same thing. So why would someone want to listen to what I'm saying? I think we all kind of think like that.
Right.
Like what's you see the numbers and you go, oh, people actually do listen. And somebody else who doesn't do it, it's like, well, I'm not that interesting.
Exactly.
Which is false.
So the part that I'm literally trying to contain myself. The part I want to talk about is Marvel. If anyone can't see, I'm wearing my brother's t-shirt to be like support. I am a Marvel fan. Jess is a Marvel fan, but I would like to class you both as Marvel stans, if I'm being honest, because I feel like your knowledge of everything is incredible. I think that the episodes that you do where you've specialized in the WandaVision, the Falcon and Winter Soldier and Loki episodes have been brilliant. I love them so much. So massive congrats to you. You are so perceptive. like you're picking up stuff that I am not seeing watching it first time round. Do you really get this from watching it once, or are you playing it back before you do the episode? Well, how does this work?
I watch it once because I only have time to watch it once.
Nah, for me, I like to do it like at least 2 or 3 times because I want to enjoy it. I want to enjoy it for the first time when there's no distraction. I'm just solely focusing on the story and what's happening now, and then second and third time, that's when I start like sort of dissecting things and like looking into it, and then see what the reference is about. So yeah,
for me, I'm like you. I can't contain myself. I like when I see it, I'll see something and I turn to him. I'm like, did you see that? That's because of this. And I get like all the pages out and I'm like, look, this. That's literally like.
Are you like fact checking, or are you like doing research beforehand on what you might think is about to happen, or like how does that work for you guys?
It's not. We kind of like. We have a theory and then we'll try and back it up with facts, I guess, rather than like looking up certain things. Like for instance, when we were watching the Loki episodes, like we kept trying to like how I was like, oh, the new Loki, the lady Loki, it's going to be.
Oh my god, Loki. You guys killed me with that when you were like, I reckon it's a girl. I was like, oh my god. So the next time I was watching, I was like, is it a girl? Is it a girl? It's a girl. Oh my god, they were right.
And that's literally the way it happened. It's like because you can see sort of like the planets aligning as it is. Like you know what's going to happen. But Marvel, the MCU anyway, is so clever with that because they've actually changed a lot. Like from the comics, like it's completely different.
It's always like they always like combine 2 things. Like for Lady Loki, her name is not supposed to be Sylvia, is supposed to be Lady Loki, but they've combined it with 2 different stories, and it somehow fits and like to that narrative. And it's like it's pretty.
I mean, if you were to look at all of the comics, like there are so many different variations and different like forms of superheroes that they there's too many to count. Like so that what they do is they just kind of merge them and make a completely unique one.
Or like do like a slight reference of it, like in the background.
Exactly. So. And it works so well because that's what keeps us interested. And like people like me and Rod who have looked at the comics and we know about the comics are still kept on our toes by the new episodes of MCU because we don't know what's coming.
Well, that's what I feel like you guys helped me understand as well, because I was like, well, surely we know what's going to happen because of the comics. And then when you guys were explaining, well, no, because they can go in so many different ways. I was like, oh my god.
Okay. Like, I mean, spoilers obviously for Loki, but like with Kang, like he originally creates a different variation of himself every time he time travels. That's originally what it is in the comics, but in this one it's completely different. There's like an explosion of like loads of different Kangs. So we didn't know that was coming. We had no idea that was coming. So it's fun to watch.
I mean, we kind of got like a hint of it because like they did the whole Loki variant, having like from different universes and timelines. But I never expected like to be like millions of Kangs and all of them having like different like savagenesses to it. So.
I mean, it all comes from like just us having like no life when we were younger and just like.
Well, that's what we wanted to know. We wanted to know, when did this like kind of start? I guess because I've always loved Marvel because I grew up with it with my brother, and my dad was quite influential in getting us into Marvel and my cousins and stuff, but none of my friends were into it when I was younger. Like Jess didn't even know about Marvel until recently. I was like, watch this.
A few years ago we did like marathons at Ree's house.
I'm a big movie person, and I was like, right, if I can get Jess into like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, I can get her into Marvel. So
I've got her.
She's mine now.
I was so happy when she was like, yep, I'm down, and I was like, we're doing Avengers, let's go. And I got her up to date so that she could come and see Endgame with me. And it was like, I'm such an active participant in a cinema as well. I don't know if that's actually a good thing for.
Are you the one that claps at the end, like when the film is?
I stay for all of the credits because I want to clap for all of them, and I'm the one screaming, thinking that I'm like when it was the all-female scene. I was like, where's my shield? I want to join in. So you guys have enjoyed Marvel, whatever, since you were kids. Did it start then with comics, or did it start with films, TV shows? How did it start for you guys?
I think I missed the comic like
era
train. Like it was more like animated shows. I was actually more of a DC fan.
Okay.
Way more of a DC fan than Marvel.
Does that still stand? Like,
yes,
like I think like DC, like they knocked it out of the park when it came from like animated shows. Like if you ever want to go back and watch like the stuff in the 90s, or like not the original Batman because that's terrible, but like the other ones like the 2000s and stuff, like they get really good, and they got like so many more issues than people think they do. Like, they cover it more.
Right.
But when it came to movies, Marvel just knocked it out of the park again. Like, there was nothing that no one can compete with it now. Which even with Zack Snyder, like, it doesn't work.
I was about to ask, did you enjoy the director's actual cut?
Yeah, the 4-hour fest.
Way better.
It was so good. Like,
my brother
really
had been counting. He was part of the people who had petitioned.
Oh, really?
yeah. And then when it happened, oh my god, he lost his shit. But then when it was on, I think I was working, and it was in the background. He's just going through something, and I'm like, love Aquaman.
It's just weird because they changed some weird things in that. The amount of like there was arse shots all the time on women, like, and all that stuff, like it was unnecessary. So we don't need to see this all the time. Like they focused on the wrong things in that other cut, and in Zack Snyder, the original cut, because he's actually a comic book fan. So he loves all of this stuff, so he knew exactly how to cut it. Just made it 4 hours so that no one could watch it.
It's fine.
Just in case anyone who's listening doesn't know and isn't in complete geek mode like I am, the DC did they had the Justice League movie shot. The original director, his daughter committed suicide, so he was taken off from production. And what's the arsehole called?
Josh Whedon.
Thank you. And then took over and made it bad, and it just got absolutely annihilated. And then people like my brother and other fans petitioned to be able to get the cut that it was intended to be, and that came out this year, was it?
Yeah. And this year.
Everyone went crazy for it. So
it was weird. It was like he had watched, like, I don't know, a few Marvel films, like the beginning era ones, and was just like, this is how to make a Marvel or a superhero film. Which is not what DC. I don't know if you know much about DC, but like it's a darker universe.
Oh, it's much darker.
It's so much.
It's more about, society gonna collapse. It's not like it might get saved. It's gonna collapse, and it's just more
I
about
think that's
that.
kind of why I usually go more to Marvel. I'm like, happy.
But I think because like Marvel has set this tone from like the first like movie Iron Man, where it's always gonna be like action comedy. And like they've always released one every year, and it didn't matter which flop, but because they still set that tone to like the end game, it's like that's what everyone wants to see now. So when Josh Whedon tried to do it with Justice League, it didn't work because he cut out everything that's important, and all not like he made some cheesy lines and like weird directing choices, and I'm like, this man is just butchering the entire DC universe.
And it's sad because a whole like generation of kids now think DC is trash. Which really annoys me. It's actually there's a lot more depth there than just like, oh, Batman is good because he's got a belt. Like it's a lot more than that.
It's got a story to him.
Because I'm actually recently watching all the Marvel films in order.
Like, I want to do that
too. and like I watched the original like Iron Man, and I was just like, damn, it's not like that good. If you actually go back and watch it, it's not a really good film. But what it went into, what it led into,
it's the build up. It's the layers that they've done that's created the entity that it is, I think.
Ree, you were talking about sort of being geeky and into Marvel stuff from a young age. And guys, you're talking about comics and also the DC stuff. Do you think the interest in superhero movies has changed since like your childhood to now?
I think it's definitely become like a lot more mainstream. Like that so many people now are watching. I mean, even like you, Jess, like you didn't originally like Marvel, and now you got kind of forced into it.
Well, do you know what I was saying to Ree? Like, I don't know if it's like just an age thing for me, in that, again, I don't want to like label people's geeks or whatever, but that was how I would have seen it as a kid. I would have been like, oh, you're quite geeky if you're into comics and into Marvel and stuff like that. And it actually had kind of like a negative connotation to it. It was like, oh, nerdy, geeky. I was saying to Ree, like, actually, growing up, I'm like, no, it's actually really cool to have an interest in something and to delve into like another world. I actually think that's cool. Like, why is it geeky and negative to have an interest in something, you know? So I actually kind of admire people for really throwing themselves into it.
It definitely came like that because in school you would never admit it. Like it's the same with like liking, or at least in my school, liking rock music. You'd never never ever would you admit that.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah,
no one would like you if that was the case. It was either you like hip hop or R&B or anything like that. That's it.
I mean, school's a bit punishing, right? Because like you were just divided into like the popular kids, the quiet kids, or the emo kids.
Honestly, mine was divided into cultures. Like for me, it was literally that bad. Like you literally was over there if you were Indian, you were over there if you were Somalian, you were over there if you were mixed. Like it was like that. Like that's how people went around in groups. It was terrible.
For me at school, I've said it before on previous episodes, I was such like a drifter at school. Like I was friends with everyone, but I didn't enjoy staying put. Mostly because like 5 minutes into conversation, like this is no longer serving me of any interest. So moving on. But I didn't really ever I didn't necessarily talk about the things that I was really into, but I wouldn't deny it, if that makes sense. Like if someone's like, are you into Marvel? I'm like, yeah, did you just see the last movie? And then like, yeah. And I'm like, okay,
with mine, it was a lot of
on the same level.
I think for me, it was a lot of gotcha moments. It was like, are you into this? It's like, yeah, I am. Well, you're a prick. Like it was,
exactly.
I don't like you. It's like, okay, great. In the end, I liked nothing.
Like just walking around, that's it.
That's so horrible. Oh, kids suck.
It's like prison, honestly. I said this before. Like school feels like a prison. Like you one of the first pieces of advice I got when going to my new school was find the biggest kid and beat him up. That was what someone told me.
I was that biggest kid. So you want to beat me up for no reason.
And I'm just like, how do I have to do this? Like, yeah, it was crazy. I didn't do it for reference.
Rod, I've got a question for you. So as well as being a co-host and gamer, you're also an extremely talented concept artist and illustrator. Can you first of all explain to me what is a concept artist?
A concept artist is basically, so if you came with me like an idea, like it could be like a spaceship or to like a logo, I would come up with a bunch of different ideas and sketches and finalizing the product, see which one you like, and then that's it. It's literally just designing a bunch of different styles and designs. That's it. Like there's not, and then you pick which one from it, and then I'll finalize it, and then that's pretty much just designing concept.
Okay, and how did you get into that?
I've always liked to draw like weird things, like creatures and stuff like that. But it's like I think the more I grew up, that wasn't like, especially the friends I was hanging out with, like they would expect me to draw like something like great, like something like stylish or like something a bit more like cute. Like so I was like, so I was in a way like hidden from that. But then when I got to secondary school, that's when I started, like end of secondary school, sorry. That's when I started like having like less friends, but like going into this more like design concept, which is like designing creatures, landscapes and things like that. That's how I got into it, and I enjoyed it more because it just gets my mind going. It keeps me going through. So yeah.
And you did the design work for the podcast for the Strange Origins stuff, didn't you? How did you come up with that idea? Had you given any sort of
Rod do it?
Forced labor.
Yeah. So many words. But were you did either of you like have an idea on what you wanted and then you were like, okay, create it? Or was it
the way Rod's describing concept art is actually how it went down.
Yeah.
I said to Rod, like, I've got 3 ideas.
Yeah.
Can you do something with it? And Rod was great with it.
Yeah, and then I want like the style that I went for was, again, I was looking at a bunch of different designs and also like friendly type stuff, and also other big YouTubers what they have. So I just came up with like a cute, still recognizable logo. So
yeah. when you first did the work, you guys weren't doing the video versions of your episodes. I had no idea what you looked like. So when you did the cartoons, I was like, they have long
work out.
I was like, right, okay. And then when you find it, I was like, got it.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the things that I would love to have seen, is like what people thought we looked like before the logo and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because like I don't know, like I've heard from a lot of people that Rod's voice does not sound like what he looks like.
No.
At all.
Yeah.
No, not at all. It was only until I got some context that he was Filipino, I was like, okay, right. Let's get some bit more like ideas in my head.
Earlier you mentioned that, Rod, that things didn't come quite naturally to you when starting the podcast. So do you think part of that is kind of like you're an artist and maybe you're not so used to sort of being behind the mic and being on camera?
Yeah, because I like to express my feelings through art. as cliche as that sounds. So like when I first like heard the whole idea with Mark and Jack doing podcasts, I was like, oh, that's great, I'll fully support it. But then when Jack was like, yeah, I need you, man, I need a co-host. and I was like,
the other guy doesn't like the name.
I was just like deep down inside, like, oh my god, I'm just gonna fully die, like have a stroke in the middle of all this recording. But I think I felt okay after a while, because it just felt like just two guys just having conversation. And like I think on the podcast we got like a feedback from a friend, and she said, yeah, this podcast seems a bit more natural and like just again friendly, and like it just fits. And I was like, oh cool, thank you. Like at least like I got some improvements in a way. So
it was funny because when I first asked Rod, I was like, can you, like, as I said, like I needed you, I needed a new co-host. You're the only, I've got like three or four friends that I can just talk like this to. Like, I could talk openly, honestly, but the other ones weren't going to work out, and obviously Mark didn't. So like with Rod, like I needed him, and I said, and he was like, "Yeah, sure, man, that's fine." And then when we got to recording day, he was like, "I can't do this, man. I can't." Like it's just like glistening, like he could, I can't. I
had like a bucket underneath me, sweating. Oh my god!
But I can totally relate to that. Like I definitely, it's taken me time to ease into it, and also just naturally, also when we interview people, naturally kind of remembering that you're being recorded and possibly being watched as well, so like having to like respond and be like, okay, instead of like, I'm usually someone who, if someone's speaking and I'm just interested in what they're saying, I won't say anything because I don't have anything to say. But then I realize like actually podcast, people got to realize you're still there. It's not just that person talking. It doesn't come naturally to me, but you know.
I think like watching a lot of like YouTube and stuff like that kind of like taught me that you got to feel the dead air. Like and again, if someone's listening as well, like it's just like did I mute it? Like what's going on? Like I can't hear anything. So it's just like even a laugh, a grunt, or anything like that. It's just like
just make a noise even though you're dying.
That was one of the main things that stood out for me with your podcast. I was like, this doesn't sound edited, and it's so like your flow is so great. It is. I know we keep saying it over and over again, but it is. It's great. It's so like natural. It's relaxed, and it's just not awkward to listen to. I don't feel like, oh, they had to cut that part there or something. It's like, no, it works. I really enjoy it.
With Rod, like it's only been a handful of times we've had to like splice it, and that's literally all because of internet connection issues. Like that's it.
Right.
Like every time we're talking about something, I don't know, it just feels like we could just talk about anything. So I could even look at the poster behind Rod and just start a conversation about that. Like, and that's just the way it works. I think like with when you have like, I'm lucky and fortunate enough to have such a good friendship that I can talk about anything with this guy over here. So.
Jack, bringing it back to you, in your bio you mentioned, as in on your Instagram bio, you mentioned that you're a guitarist. Is that something that you actually like want to pursue, or is that just for fun? Like,
oh no, I think I've got no talent when it comes to that sort of stuff. like I do a lot of like hobbies and try and do a lot of like things that I've never done before to learn and try something different. Like I did skateboarding during the summer of last year, and like guitaring, like picked it up, rock climbing, bouldering, that sort of stuff. Like because I want to try and do as many things as possible. And but guitar like is just like a hobby that I would never show anyone.
Except for loved ones.
I did a performance-ish like with a bunch of friends, and I was like Rod when he first started the podcast. I drenched my t-shirt. I like messed up my notes. I couldn't do anything. It's something about like when someone comes to a place and expects to see something. And for me that puts a lot of pressure on me. I'm usually quite good under pressure, but not when it comes to like intimate things with a guitar. Like it's quite intimate. So and there was a guy, my friend who was playing guitar with me, he had like 12 years experience, and I had just started for about 2 months, and I was like,
that doesn't really feel like the situation you want to be in there.
He's got like this 2,000-pound like guitar, and I got one I got from like a charity shop.
Look, you got to start somewhere. So I think you're doing that. I mean, talking about the interest that you guys have in DC and Marvel, and how thorough you guys are with that, are you like that with any other franchises, like maybe not superhero based things?
I think for me it was Game of Thrones was another one.
Where
I would like I would be reading like the books and then watching the series, and then I would have like 4 or 5 hour conversations with my friends at the pub about like people's names I shouldn't even know. I should know more about history, our history than Game of Thrones. Like I know, I feel like I know every single title and all that stuff, and which lands they hold and all that stuff. And it's like, why do I know this? But yeah, that's like the biggest one I think I had. Like,
do you know what? I wish we'd prepared a quiz for today, like we did for James on Eurovision. I feel like we come unprepared, Ree. We do better.
I had too many questions I wanted to ask. That's why I was like, no.
Well, we can always come back.
Yeah. What about you, Rod? Do you have anything other than like Marvel and DC that you're really into as well, that you put this amount of energy into?
Not really. Like it's mostly comics. So I always try to compare the two and what did they change and things like that. But yeah, nothing.
You guys into anime?
I mean, yeah, anime.
Yeah.
But,
huge.
Rod more than me. Like I think, for me, like when I watch anime, like it gets kind of samey sometimes, and I'm like, oh god, I need to have a long break and then come back again.
I'm like that with anime movies. Like there's some ones that got me to watch. I'm like, are you fucking kidding? Like I'm bawling my eyes out because they're so depressing or sad. And he goes, let's watch this one. I'm like, not for a few months.
Was it like Spirited Away and all that stuff? Like I haven't watched.
Have you seen what's it called, A Silent Voice?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, I mean, I encourage you in some ways, but I also I'm sorry if you then get really upset and down. Like I don't want to be responsible. It's an amazing movie, but it's sort of like, oh my god.
I feel like that happens a lot in anime. It's like, we're best friends, and then I found out that friend is a vision and he's actually dead and died 5 years ago. It's like
died 5 years ago. Like,
it's very heavy.
Sounds it.
Going back to the superhero part of stuff, do you feel like what is being represented today is enough? Like, do you feel like there needs to be more? So for example, we spoke about with
Falcon Winter Soldier and
yes,
Loki.
thank you, Falcon Winter Soldier, how they do the whole, there's that huge race speech that Sam, what's the actor, Anthony Mackie gives. And I was just there watching it. I was just crying because I just thought, wow, this is so like moving and relevant. And then we have Loki, who's basically disclosing that he's bisexual, pansexual, something along the lines of that. We've got the all-female scene in Endgame. I mean, I would have loved more than just that, but I mean, you know, I feel like we're getting somewhere. But do you feel like enough is being represented, or do you think they need to be doing more, or do you feel like that's coming in phase 4?
I definitely feel like that's on the agenda with the new Avengers. We know from comics anyway that it's like 60 or 50% female in the new Avengers. So the new cast that's going to be coming should be more representative in that respect. But it's definitely something I think needs to happen more than what they're doing now. I think or at least done in a better way, for lack of any better word. Like because you mentioned the full all female scene. But that's all we got.
And it was just a shot.
Which is what's really annoying to me, because again, we all know Wanda and Captain Marvel are the strongest out of any of them
in the universe.
And we never see them. Captain Marvel just went and did her own thing and then came back. Like Wanda
took out some jets.
And it's just like she had a one-on-one, I guess, with Thanos at one point, but again, she just gets punched away, and it's just like we need more of that rather than just like a pandering sort of scene. That's what I didn't want. And you mentioned Falcon Winter Soldier, that scene at the end where he's giving that speech about our society now and race and all that stuff. You know, when you take a step back when you're watching something and you take note of yourself. I could feel my heart rate getting faster. That's such a good scene. Because that's exactly what is wrong.
Do you know what annoyed me about that scene? Like I loved it. It annoyed me that it was in a TV episode. I wish it had been in a film that was seen by millions, because thousands are watching this, obviously, if they're lucky to have Disney Plus or however else you're getting it. But when things like Endgame, I understand, again, I suppose we've got to recognize from a production point of view, it's the building layers section. It's how we're in phases, aren't we? So it's been building, but part of you is just like, why was this not consistent throughout? Why was it not here? Again,
because it was at the end of Falcon Winter Soldier. My nephew, and it's such a small sample size, but my nephew is obviously part of the younger generation. And he hated Falcon Winter Soldier, like the series.
Really?
Because he said it was too much talking, not enough action.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what the problem was. It's like he never got to that. Like he watched it, but he never took it in.
Right.
That part of what this was actually, he didn't understand the subtext. He didn't understand what we're talking about. We're talking about American Day society, or even if not the whole world.
Yeah.
And we're talking about what's happening now that we're seeing in this universe. And when you come to that last speech that he gives and it tops it all off, it didn't have any impact with him. And that's what annoyed me about it. As you said, it didn't go in a movie.
Yeah. Because I think, like you said, that I actually really enjoyed that it wasn't heavy on the action. Like I love action, I love all of that, but it was really nice to, for once, getting to hear them talk about something instead of just them fight. Like, okay, cool, you fought someone again and you did it really well, or something. You know, it's like, okay, use your words. Like,
and that's what's great about it, because like with our generation, like it kind of went to us. Like that was kind of like for us, I guess. But the more you keep putting it out there, the more people are going to listen, right? And it becomes normal. Like I was talking to Rod actually, like reflecting on this question, because this one actually like impacts us quite a lot because of mixed heritage and all that stuff. So it you got to give more representation, right? And I was thinking back to a music video that I guess I can attribute this to James, because he always put Madonna on, or Kylie Minogue, something like that. And that's now why I like that stuff. But Like a Prayer, for instance, it's the one that sticks out for me. That music video was boiled down about a black man getting accused for attacking a woman that he didn't touch. He was just trying to help her, right?
Yeah.
And I remember watching that as a kid, it vividly so much in my head that I remember watching that, like the injustice of it. And I didn't know anything about race at the time, so someone had to describe to me what was happening and why he was getting persecuted and no one else was. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that, because that was just out there, like, again, that's a music video probably watched by less.
Yeah.
But I saw that and that affected me as a kid. So if you keep putting these things out there like this, one kid might watch that and see that speech and just go, oh my God, like it completely changes their life. And that's, I mean, I didn't realize it until you asked this question. That how much that affected me, that music video, and that was just a music video.
I think there's so many pivotal moments in cinematic history, in music videos, all that sort of stuff, where what they're doing really does impact societies, cultures, everything. But I feel like being specifically with Marvel, like let's be honest, that's what I can't stop talking about, who are owned by Disney, the biggest like entity in the world, sort of thing, you know. It feels like that should be their responsibility, in my opinion. And especially, like, we've even said it, Jess and I, talking about Disney movies, like what's shown in those. It's only been recent that they've started showing the princesses or the female characters where they don't rely on a guy saving them. You know, it's something else, you know. And for me, so my background is Polynesian. When Moana came out, I was like, finally, like something.
And
great film. It was a really good film.
And it was the one that my dad would actually sit down to watch. It's like, oh, sick. Okay, it's because he probably relates to it as well. So I feel like, if you're coming from such a massive thing like Marvel under the umbrella that is Disney, and then everything else that comes with it, there has to be some sort of representation. I think that's why a lot of us are excited about Phase 4. But I do have one question actually that I didn't put on here that I wanted to ask you is, what do you think about the Asian movie coming out?
Shang-Chi. Yeah.
What do you think about this? Because I've been listening to what some other people have been saying, and I've been really excited about it. And then when I heard what other people have had to say, it kind of humbled me a bit, like, oh yeah, like, because basically they were saying how, I don't know enough, so maybe you do, maybe you know more about this character, but it was basically saying that his superpower is kung fu, and it's like, what Captain America can do, what Iron Man can do. I was like, why have they done that? Why have they done that as his only power? Like, if they're finally trying to represent the Asian community,
but in like in a stereotypical racist
way. I think definitely with MCU that they're not going to do that. I think it's going to be completely different in this movie. The only problem is, like, with my knowledge when it comes to this film, is I actually don't watch trailers like at all until I've seen the film. So I haven't seen so I haven't seen anything apart from a picture of it. But going off of what I know, I don't think they're gonna do like that whole of like, oh, he's just got kung fu and that's it.
Okay.
He is gonna play like a big role in like a Phase 4. So it's like it would be like stupid of him to be like take it that way just to have him there. Basically.
And, right. I don't think that. Well, I mean, Disney surely are smart, isn't it?
I
hope anyway.
So. They're getting there, maybe.
going back to like what you were saying before, like with representation, like when it comes to that, like I'm still finding myself yearning for more though, because like there is no Middle Eastern like superhero. There is no like
there's Miss Marvel coming out.
Yeah, well,
but she's supposed to be Middle Eastern, but I don't know how.
But like this is what Rod and I were talking about, is that I actually, because when I watched the original Iron Man like a couple of days ago, the main bad guy was Middle Eastern.
Right.
It was just a Middle Eastern like Taliban sort of thing. Like that was all it was. And in the next film, it was Russians. And it's just like there was that's it.
Everyone that's sort of fighting against America is going to be put as
it's always the bad guys. It's always
like propaganda.
Like and in terms of Disney, the only one we had was like Aladdin, and it's just like even that was a remake. So it's just like and not a very good one. But like when it comes to like that sort of stuff, like they're still struggling like with Asian like community as well. They've only just now started doing that. Because again, the biggest issue in America is black versus white. That's what they always do. So it would be nice for them to do more.
I think especially because it's on a global level as well. It's not just America. And I think some people in their head office are very aware of that, and then others are not. I think that some of them forget that this is going to a worldwide audience that consume this very heavily and hold dear to their hearts, and it does kind of hurt when you're not represented. I know that I'm not saying you need to have every single flag being shown in one movie, but
at least every continent.
It would be nice. Definitely. So I just want to sort of ask you guys, what would you like our listeners to take from this episode about your podcast and about you guys as well?
Yeah, well, honestly, like what it was today, where we just kind of like branched onto anything. Like, I mean, we diverged from a path. Like, I mean, it's not too hard to go back onto that path, you know, and keep talking. That's pretty much what we do. Like all the time, we just talk about random shit. like
life experiences.
Yeah, and we want to have like more guests as well. Like we want to try and have like more people to like diversify what we're talking about. Otherwise it's just gonna be us two talking all the time.
People get tired of it. And at some point we're just gonna run out of stories and life experiences. So
we like to ask all of our guests what makes up your circle. So if your life was made up of a circle, what would it be made up of?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Family.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually got asked a similar question like that back in secondary school. It was a psychologist who came to my school. And he asked me to take part of a study, and you had to put the chess pieces on a board, how close they are to you, basically. So the king was you, and then you would put like who is most important near to you. And I think like, I mean, it's cliche again, as Rod said, it's the family. Like it is like that. And around my circle is like family and friends kind of diverge into one. Like
chosen family.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and that's like literally my circle anyway.
I was going for more Fast and Furious.
Fast and Furious reference, yeah.
But yeah, pretty much the same thing. They're pretty much on the same level when it comes to closeness.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, if Rod needed me, I'd go to his stupid sheep country and find him.
Whoa!
Out in the sticks somewhere, out of London, like legit. No, like I've done it before with my friends. If they've needed me, like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I've got work next day, I still come down to see them. Like it's like that. They are family to me. So
love it. Great. So we like to dedicate every episode to a small business, a charity, or an organization. And of course, we want to promote the hell out of this podcast. So please, everyone, go and check out Strange Origins. How can they find you and support you?
So we're on YouTube, Spotify. We haven't actually yet done Apple Music or anything like that, but
no,
I don't want to feed into the CEOs. Like, it's, we're on YouTube and Spotify at the moment. Yeah.
Perfect. And can they follow you on Instagram as well? Or is that...
Yeah, they can follow us on Instagram. It's more like our personal thing. We don't actually have an account for that, but on Twitter we do have an account for Strange Origins.
Oh, okay. Where is that at?
That's just Strange Origins. Yeah.
Perfect. Great. So all that information will be on the screens right now, so you guys can go and check that out. Please go and give them a follow. Please subscribe. Please stream. Do all of that amazing stuff. You will not regret it. Thank you so much for joining us. I've loved this.
Thank you very much.
Definitely have you back whenever you want to. But if everyone can please follow, like we said, and subscribe, and thank you for listening. Please make sure to stream on all of our streaming platforms, which is Amazon Music, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify, RSS, and follow us on YouTube and everything else. All of the information in the description.
We've got something to learn.
And we'll see you for our next episode. Bye.
Bye.